Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a topic that, let's be honest, most project managers just see as paperwork: procurement. But what if I told you it's actually one of the most powerful strategic tools you have? We're about to completely reframe how you see procurement. We're going to move way beyond just buying things and see it for what it is: a masterclass in managing external value and strategically offloading risk. Let's get into it. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the strategic why, then get into the core mechanics. We'll unpack that crucial buyer-seller dynamic, walk through a real-world example, touch on the legal side, and then wrap up with the absolute must-know takeaways. All right, let's start at the very beginning. Why does procurement management even need to exist? Well, the answer really lies in a simple, strategic reality that every single organization, big or small, eventually faces. It's the first question everybody asks, right? Why don't we just do it all ourselves? But here's the thing. On any project that has real complexity, you are going to hit a wall. I guarantee it. A point where your team, no matter how brilliant they are, just can't cover every single base. And you know what? That's not a failure. It's actually a sign of strategic maturity, knowing your limits and knowing exactly when to bring in the experts. So, here's the official PMP definition. And it sounds almost a little too simple, doesn't it? But the implications here are huge. This is the formal process we use to consciously go out and fill those gaps we just talked about, whether it's a lack of people, specific skills, or some niche knowledge, all to make sure we actually hit our project goals. And this right here, this is probably the single most important mental shift you have to make. If you're serious about project leadership or you're studying for the PMP exam, you have got to burn this into your brain. Procurement is not an admin task. It is a core strategic function. You stop being someone who just places orders and you become an architect, designing these external relationships that pull value in and push risk out. Okay, now that we get the why, let's dig into the how. See, procurement doesn't operate in a vacuum. It's deeply, deeply woven into the very fabric of your project's management plan. The best way to think about it is like a three-gear system. First, you've got scope management that defines what we need to build. Then, resource management figures out what we can build with our internal team. And procurement? That's the gear that connects to the external world to get everything else. And for the project to succeed, they all have to turn in perfect sync. This slide, wow, this really gets to the heart of how your role as a PM completely changes. Internally, you operate with direct authority, right? You can manage with informal chats, quick requests. The second you bring in a seller, that whole world just vanishes. Your entire relationship is now governed by a formal legal contract. Every single change, no matter how tiny, has to be documented. You've gone from managing a team member to managing a formal business-to-business relationship. Now this is fascinating. This slide reveals one of the biggest and honestly most overlooked reasons we even use procurement: risk. Just imagine a task with a massive technical risk for your team. Maybe you don't have the right certifications or the super specialized tools. Well, procurement is your escape hatch. It lets you literally transfer that risk to an external expert who does this stuff for a living. This is a monster concept for the PMP exam, folks. And the process flows exactly how you think. It starts with you, identifying a risk your team just isn't built to handle. Then, you go out and find a specialist, a vendor, whose whole business is built around solving that exact problem. You lock it all down in a formal contract, and that's the moment you officially hand that risk over. And finally, your project can sail on, protected by their expertise, with that threat totally neutralized. This brings us to one of the most critical ideas in all of procurement management: the buyer-seller duality. To really succeed here, you have to understand that you're not just hiring a vendor, you're managing a project within your project. So let's use a case study to make this real. Imagine your company builds high-rise towers. You are absolutely world-class at concrete and steel. That's your core competency. But the project scope also calls for a complex, high-voltage electrical grid and a super sophisticated AI building management system. These are your project apps. You can't do them in-house. So in this scenario, your construction firm is the buyer. You hire a specialized electrical company, and they become the seller. Now, pay really close attention to the goals here because they are not the same. Your goal is to integrate their piece of the work perfectly into your massive project. Their goal is to deliver exactly what's in the contract and make a profit while doing it. You see the difference? It's subtle, but it's huge. And this is the key insight.
To you, that electrical job is just one line item, one work package, which is really just project speak for a chunk of work on your massive project plan. But to that seller, to them, it is their entire project. They've got their own project manager, their own budget, their own definition of what success looks like. Understanding and respecting that duality, that is the absolute secret to managing vendors effectively.
Okay, so how do we decide when to bring in a seller in the first place? This is where all that theory meets practice, and it's through a data-driven process that has to happen before any contract is ever even drafted. It's called the make or buy analysis. And listen, this isn't about a gut feeling. It is a formal, analytical tool that a project manager leads to figure out the most efficient, the most cost-effective, and the lowest risk path to getting the work done. And what's so great about this slide is it shows this decision goes way, way beyond just the price tag. You're forced to ask some really tough questions. First up, capability. Can we even do this? Do we have the right skills? Then there's availability. Even if we have the skills, are our people free? Or are they completely buried in other work? You've got to weigh the cost of training your own people against the premium a vendor's going to charge. And then the killer variable, life cycle cost. A vendor's warranty might actually make the buy option way cheaper in the long run. All right, so once you decide to buy, you enter this new, way more formal world. This next part is all about clearing up a really common point of confusion. What exactly is the project manager's role at the legal interface of the project? Okay, let's be absolutely crystal clear on this. As a project manager, you are not a lawyer. You leave the contract signing to the legal team. Your job is to manage the technical and operational health of that agreement. Are they delivering what they promised? On schedule? That's your world. And because it's such a formal relationship, there are no side deals. Every single change, no matter how small, has to go through the official change control system. No exceptions, ever. This is why we always say the contract is the single source of truth. If there's ever a dispute about scope or schedule or payment, this document is what everyone goes back to. An informal, oh, by the way, could you also, to a vendor can lead to huge claims and massive disputes down the road. The contract ultimately protects both the buyer and the seller. Wow, we have covered a lot of ground. So let's boil it all down to the absolute essentials, the stuff you really need to remember, both for that PMP exam and for your day-to-day life as a project leader. Let's lock this all in with the 5 core concepts that really define strategic procurement. Okay, number 1, procurement is about bringing in external value, not just outsourcing tasks. 2, the buyer-seller relationship is the absolute center of this universe. 3, a primary driver for this whole process is the strategic transfer of risk. 4, your role as the PM is all about coordination and integration across a very formal boundary. And finally, number 5, every single one of these decisions must be driven by data, starting with that make-or-buy analysis. And that leaves us with a bigger question to chew on. If all this is true, if it's about more than just finding the lowest price, then how do you actually measure the strategic value of a long-term vendor partnership? It's a question that takes us from the science of management right into the art of leadership. In our next explainer, we'll get practical and dive into the specific calculations behind that make or buy decision. I'll see you there.